one podcast, mining the Magic the Gathering subreddits for salt. This is the Howling Salt Mine.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast, the podcast where we delve into those salty, salty minds of the Magic the Gathering community, finding the saltiest stories, those salty confessionals that we love, put them in our mind cart, and bring them back up to you, our dear prospectors at home. As always, I'm your host, Sam, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Tony. Say hey, Tony.
What up, what up, what up? You know, I gotta say, I feel like even the inflection points that you make when you say that are now becoming standard. Of like, we delve into the salty minds.
I feel like a robot.
Salty minds. Yeah. I feel like I have to say it so that people know that you're still doing it live. Like,
yeah, I feel like it's well-worn grooves at this point. It's been over a year. So, and dear listener, you may have noticed that Mike isn't here. Yep, that's right. He had something.
Welcome.
I don't know what it was. So today we're joined by our special guest host, Pat. Say hey, Pat.
In response to Tony's monologue, I was holding up mana, and it's been countered.
Yo, fuck Pat. I can't believe this is finally happening.
No, I was looking forward to this. When I heard I was going to finally be doing an episode with Tony, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't wait.
It was actually kind of hilarious because Mike was like trying to be like, no, like you can't do an episode with Pat and I'm not there. And I was like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
Like this needs to happen so that we can establish the true order of things.
Yeah, I'm just going to step out and let you guys fucking fight,
settle
basically.
Send Triplets is a fun deck.
It is so funny how like this thing has come out of the show where it's like, oh, Pat's going to replace Tony at some point. And Tony's always like, fucking bullshit.
It's part of the lore. It's part of the mythos, you know?
Yeah, it is part of like the funny lore, I guess. Hey, speaking of lore, what do you guys think of the Lord of the Rings shit that's been coming out? Today was spoiler day. We're fucking hot on it, dude. We are hot on it.
Oh my god. I'm so it's literally just like so good because I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. I mean, I talked about it on the podcast. Like I have a fucking Lego set of Lord of the Rings that I just bought. I didn't buy this as a child. I'm fucking 31. I just bought that shit. I'm like, let's go. And I didn't put it in a cart because if I put it in a cart, I would have bought it. But I clicked on a collector's box.
Really?
Today for...
That's how you get that ring, dude. You got to get the one ring.
Well, that's borderline why I want to do it. I know I'm not going to get it, but... It's just like the lotto. I can't win if I don't play, you know?
Yeah.
It's stellar marketing. My roommate who never buys sealed product, even this time is going, I'm going to buy something to see if I get the one ring. Like, it's so funny. That gambler's fallacy comes out as soon as the jackpot is high enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's like, I'm not going to get it, but if I don't buy a pack, I'm really not going to get it, you know?
Exactly.
Then there's no chance.
I was thinking also about just buying a pack, but like one pack it never satiates me. That's my biggest problem. Like one pack is never enough. I need it to be like 10 and then I'm like satisfied.
Because if you get 10 packs and then one of those packs is full of spicy cards, you're like, the purchase has been justified. Look at what I did.
Literally. But a lot of people always make their good point. And I say this too. Like I can buy all of the things I want from the set if I just buy the cards. But at the same time, this is one of the few sets that even the chaff I probably would enjoy just because it's all about Lord of the Rings, right? So it's like, it's not, I mean, I love a good yoke docs, don't we all? But like, you know, a yoked fucking hobbit like sounds better.
Yeah, totally did.
It's funny you say that. I had a discussion with somebody at a local LGS called the Battle Standard, which I recently became a member of. and I was talking to them about which product I was going to pre-order because I kind of want some of those chaff cards too. So I think I'm going to be getting mostly draft boosters this time, and I want to slowly play those with friends over time because I really do think this product is going to be like one of the best ones in a long time, just for in terms of like flavor, especially for getting people into the game who maybe don't normally play Magic.
Yeah. Also, shout out to the Battle Standard, which is owned by my friend Jared.
Great store.
Thanks, Jared.
I didn't know you were going there.
Oh, dude, I've started frequenting it bi-weekly because
Really?
Me and my partner Shayla have gotten into 40K as well. So,
oh, dude, yeah, that's the
man.
end of it.
I'm in trouble.
That's the end of it, man.
Are you painting your minifigs yet, or
Poorly, but yes.
nice?
What army are you running there?
Oh my God.
I happen to be building Adeptus Mechanicus.
Nice. I played a little bit of Tyranids back in the day.
Oh my
very,
God.
very loosely, but yeah, it was fun. I mean, I got into oh God, you're gonna send me
Well,
on
I was gonna say
whole
before we go
tangent here.
too far down the rabbit hole.
No, Tony. No, you can go, Tony.
I mean, the other thing I was gonna say is, do you guys think that Elijah Wood plays Magic? Because you like saw the thing, right? You,
yeah,
like,
I saw the video. So for people who haven't seen it, like Magic put out a promotional video with Elijah Wood, like looking at the cards and talking about them and being like, this is so cool. It's so flavorful. It's such a great reimagining, all this kind of stuff. I don't think he plays because I think if he did play, he'd be geeking out about like the mechanics and stuff.
Right.
And I think they would have played that up a shit ton. If he was like, oh, I play Magic, they would have been like, oh my God, like put him on game nights right now or something.
Yeah. I feel like when you put it like that, it really crushes my soul because I just had like a glimmer of maybe he plays.
Sorry, bud.
I didn't really. I wanted to believe it, you know,
Yeah.
just because it like would have made it that much better. But
Yeah, that's true.
But I bet he does play War Machine Hordes, a popular tabletop miniature game
Without a
by
doubt.
Privateer Press, which I used to play all the time. I won't talk about it. I'll talk about that some other time.
yeah, I was gonna say that's not even like a stray grains. It's an episode.
Yeah, that's
just 40 minutes of Sam talking about War Machine.
Yeah, that's a Sam
Sounds like a good
monologue.
episode.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I just have to shout out a couple cards that I'm pretty stoked for with this set.
Oh hell yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Rosie Cotton of South Lane. Did you guys
So
God.
see this thing?
cute. The art is amazing.
Yeah, the art is great. Also, like legendary halfling peasant, 2 and a white for a 1/1. Comes into play, you get a food token. Not exciting. The super exciting part is whenever you create a token, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control other than Rosie. Fucking insane, dude.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, if you have infinite mana, that just like goes infinite with Gave, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it like removes a whole step with Gave. Like
Yeah.
usually with Gave, you are converting +1/+1 counters to tokens and vice versa. Like with this, you just never reduce in your +1/+1 counter count. There's already a bunch of like 2-card combos there with like
Yeah.
Herd Baloth, where whenever you put a +1/+1 counter on Herd Baloth, you make a green beast token. So then that's just infinite right there. Like
Yeah.
2 cards.
So it's obviously very powerful and like can do a lot of things. Does it not almost make you a little sad too, though, because it sort of removes a step? I find sometimes like it feels like Gave in particular is a very Rue Goldberg kind of commander.
Yeah.
Like it does. There's tons of cards that combo with it hard, right? But sometimes it's like more fun when it is like I do the thing to this thing to that thing to get this thing.
Yeah.
And
I
now when
definitely
it's
do
just
that.
like I do this one thing, it like I don't know, it takes a little bit of the sparkle away because it's like that's the best card now, right? Like that's what you go get. You don't
Yeah.
go get any of the other things
Right.
anymore.
Well, I think what it lets me do is it lets me cut out some of the Gave-less combos that I run. Like I have some combos in there that don't need Gave, like Mike and Trike, Mycosynth the Unhallowed, and Triskelion. Like that's in there, and that doesn't need Gave to go off. And now I can just take that out and put in like a more compact Gave Wincon that probably still needs. I mean, that's probably still like 3 cards to get that to pop off. You know, like the thing with Gave that I always need to remind you guys, because you always fucking forget, is that it needs like 3 or 4 pieces to combo off. And whenever I get one down, they're like, he's about to do it. I'm like, no, I'm not even close. Like, give me time.
Well, it's because it's one of those combos that like once all the pieces are down,
You can't stop.
Usually we can't stop you. It's too late once they're all down.
It's at sack speed, so
yeah.
Yep. But yeah, dude, the flavor of the set is really, really sick. I'm also excited for the Mirkwood bats, which is like whenever you create or sack a token, each opponent
that one
loses
looks
life.
good. It's 4 mana, but still.
Bilbo, Birthday Celebrant. Did you guys see this one? It's like when you have this 5 mana activated ability, you exile Bilbo, search your library for any number of creature cards, put them on the battlefield, and then you can only activate it if you've over 111 life. Like,
Building
flavorful and weird.
I definitely was thinking about building it. Honestly, I wish it was whatchamacallit, 5-color.
Yeah.
If it was 5-color, I would be building it, and that would just be
that Tom Bombadil dude.
Yeah.
But it's like not the same. Like, I want that ability on a stick with 5 colors so that I can just run every single fucking legend in this set in the deck and then assemble the panoramic of like that full battlefield of like Pelennor fields and like stuff like
that would be kind of perfect.
Fucking sick.
Yeah, you'd have to change the lighting on your webcam for that, Tony.
Yeah, I know.
You'd be in the glare.
Oh my god. But that's what I want to do with that deck.
Also, Orcish Bowmasters. Did you guys see this shit?
Did I?
Yes.
Fucking gorgeous, man. 2 mana for a 1/1. Flash it in. When it ETBs and whenever an opponent draws a card other than their first, it deals 1 damage to any target. Then you amass Orcs 1. Insane. A lot of people are talking about how Opus Thief is gonna come back, which is the Timnacrom, the old version of Timnacrom that was like very heavy on wheels and stuff like that back when Hull Breacher was really big. Because if you wheel with this, that's 21 damage you can drop down.
Yeah.
And you're going to make a big fat orc like to any target. It's insane.
Right, but just to be clear, that 21 damage isn't to each player. It would be spread among any number of targets.
Yeah,
but it's like you could nuke somebody. You could nuke
for sure
every single creature on the board that isn't yours. Like,
I think it's better that it's like precision damage because you can. I mean, again, my Marath deck. My Marath deck has taught me the value of precision damage plinking in on specific targets. To be able to do that whenever people are drawing cards is crazy. It's like Mayhem Devil, dude. Like Mayhem Devil is super slept on, I think. And it's such a powerful card. It's crazy.
For sure.
Yeah. I kind of want to build something with that for casual.
Yeah, you're evil.
But I might not because it might be too oppressive, as they say. But anyway,
the one thing that I don't like about this set is I think the Tempt the Ring mechanic sucks.
You think it sucks?
I think it's just like a total flavor fail. It's very weird to me.
Now, do you feel that way because there's no downside, or do you feel that way kind of because it's similar to Dungeons and Initiative, and that's kind of a mechanic that people seem to have soured on a little bit, just because it's not very intuitive. It like requires a lot of game knowledge, and it's a lot to keep track of.
It's a bit of both. I think for me, the biggest thing is like a flavor fail in that it has no downside. Even the terminology tempted by the ring kind of inherently conjures up this image of like something bad happening when you indulge in the ring. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Whereas when you look at the card, it is kind of these progressive creature buffs that you apply to one of your legendary creatures, which is cool. You know, like they can't be blocked or there are like blocking stipulations. They draw cards when you attack. You know, creatures that block it get sacrificed. It just has all these interesting abilities. But like what most people associate with the ring is like all the negative shit that it was doing to Frodo. Frodo wasn't putting on the ring and being like, yo, I'm a badass now and I'm going to kill Sauron myself. Like he didn't fucking do that. Like he was like, I'm scared to put it on. And I don't want to put it on if I can help it. And I'm only going to do it when I really, really need to.
Now, the reason cited by some of the designers I remember was they just said people wouldn't really use the mechanic if there was a downside. So do you think there's like a good, clean way to fix this and add like a fun downside?
Yeah, so I actually think it wouldn't be adding a downside. I think that you reflavor it. It's not the ring anymore. It's a ring of power. And it's more about the fact that like rings of power exist in the world and they just make legendary creatures more powerful. It doesn't have to be the specific ring, like the one ring in my mind.
I see.
And I think that is the thing that kind of changes it for me, is the fact that the one ring has such a negative connotation with it, whereas just rings of power in general And there can be multiple rings of power on the board too, which is also kind of a better flavor in my mind. So I think that could be like a really subtle thing. And just the terminology, it's no longer tempted by the ring. It's, something else like that, like indulging in the ring, using the ring. Who knows?
Do you have an idea, Tony?
No, I feel like I actually just don't like how it kind of plays and the mechanics. Because, like, sure, there's no downside, but I also don't think they're like that great. Like, I kind of wanted more downside and more craziness once you've been like tempted enough. Like, even if it was just like on a stick of like, if you've been tempted 10 times, you lose the game, or like some kind of, I don't even know. I'm not good at this kind of stuff of like creating mechanics on the fly.
See, the first thing I thought when I heard this mechanic tempted by the ring was that your creature or something would get incrementally more powerful. And then as it reached its like climax, you would get some sort of abyssal persecutor ability where it's like, as long as your ring bearer is in play, you can't win the game or something. So you had to get rid of them.
Yeah, I had a similar thought, Pat, that's it would have this like penultimate thing where it would fuck up your board or something.
The ring itself, though, does have like negative impact. It's just not like the tempting mechanic that has it. But I also kind of want to build that deck that is like the tempting deck, where it's like, I don't even remember what it is, but I think if you've been tempted by the ring like 4 times or something, like you transform Frodo and you just fucking nuke people. If you hit them, they lose the game.
Yeah, I also want to build that deck. I want to build the Sam and Frodo partners deck.
Yeah,
those look cool.
Definitely the deck I want to build. So you heard it here, fans. I said it first. I will be building that.
I'm just gonna cut that right out of the episode so you never say it.
Nice.
The only other thing I'll say is that some people are getting like super butthurt about the fact that like Aragorn is black, and I think that's the stupidest shit ever. And if you think that, you should fucking take a real hard look at like what you're concerning yourself with, because I bet like 4 weeks ago you didn't give a shit about Lord of the Rings as hard as you do right now, and like you're definitely caring for a reason other than like the authenticity of the character or whatever the fuck you're saying. Like, it's just absolute Joker behavior.
If anything, I'm super glad they didn't go for like a realistic human look like they did with like the Walking Dead Secret Lairs.
Dude.
I love how creative they are with all these characters and stuff. If anything, I wish they were more creative with a few of the cards that showed locales, like Minas Tirith and Rivendell. They look good. I wish they were as creative with those locations as they were with some of the character designs, because the character designs are perfect.
Yeah, I'm glad that they've like done a really unique interpretation, because if it was just Elijah Wood on a card, as much as I love Elijah Wood, I would be so sad if it was like Viggo Mortensen, here he goes, I'm attacking with him now. It's like, boo, dude, that's so lame.
I don't know if this happened in podcast land or if it happened just in like us chatting with our pod back in the day, but when there was all the hullabaloo about secret lairs and stuff, I swear we referenced this.
We
happening.
did.
Referenced like Lord of the Rings happening, and you literally were like, I don't want Elijah Wood on a card. I want like
I think I remember
like,
that.
So true. And and it's true now. At the time, I was like, I'm not gonna play any of these stupid fucking secret lair bullshit things. I hate them. But when Lord of the Rings and Dragon Ball Z come out, I'm definitely buying all that shit. So someday when they give us the Dragon Ball Z secret lair that I've always wanted, then I'm also going to buy that shit up too. So Wizards, I know you're listening. Fucking
Dude,
print
if
that
the
shit.
If the Goku card isn't a photorealistic Viggo Mortensen, I'm gonna fucking flip out.
No, it's from the 2012 US movie where it's the
Yeah, that actor that looked like the frontman of Green Day.
Puts more product in his hair than I do.
Yeah.
That would be the funniest thing. And then they have the Avatar: The Last Airbender secret lair, but it's the M Night Shyamalan movie characters.
That is literally the worst. That is quite possibly the worst movie I've ever seen.
Yes, I agree.
And I'm not just saying that. Like it actually was just fucking
it's
trash.
It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
So like during early COVID, my wife and I were just like looking for stuff to do. You know, everybody's trapped in their homes. I was like, hey, have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show? She's like, no, I haven't. I was like, we should watch it. I think you might like it. So we started to watch it. She got super into it. We watched all of it, like marathoned it. You know, we're laughing, we're crying. It's an amazing show. We went on to watch all of Korra as well, which I hadn't seen. So that was really cool to watch together. But after we finished the third season of the Book of Fire of the animated series, I made my wife watch the M Night Shyamalan movie, and I was like, "This is a rite of passage for every Avatar fan. You must watch this movie, and you have to get super angry about it." And we had to do it in 2 sittings because she was like, "I can't take any more of this."
Yeah, can I tell you, like, Stephanie literally exact mirror. We did the same exact thing, except Stephanie had heard how bad the movie was, and she fucking loves bad TV. She like eats that shit up. She's like, if something's horrible, she's like, I must see it. and anytime there's something like this where it's like, oh, it's Avatar, there's like stuff that exists around like the universe, she's like, I must watch all of the content that exists around it. And so we watched it, and we actually stopped it. I've never stopped a movie. And like we stopped it and we're like, do we finish this? And like we've watched a lot of bad shit. And we did wind up finishing it, but it was such fucking trash.
It's so bad.
What troopers.
Yeah. What a fucking horrible movie. It's like he didn't even watch the show. Like they like they give you the pronunciations of the names M Night. Like it's Sokka and Aang, not Sokka and Ong.
Yeah,
in the fucking cartoon.
It's more authentic that way.
Oh my god. It's not like it's a book where the names are open to interpretation. Like it is a show and they are saying the names.
Open to interpretation.
Like how everybody pronounced Hermione differently when we were all growing up,
Hermione.
Some would say that
Hermione. There was some dyslexia informing my pronunciation of Hermione. Hermione.
Wow, I'll never be the same.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. Well, should we get into it? That's a lot of tangenting.
Yeah.
I got some salty stories here. We are gonna hit these, and
but Sam, wait.
Huh?
What's salt?
I was waiting because I was like, do I let Pat do this? Do I like then try and crush him and do it over him? Like,
I wanted to try to sneak it under you, but I was waiting for you to start.
It felt like a stare down in that moment too. We were both kind of just like, who's gonna move?
2 gunslingers outside the saloon.
Well, thanks, Pat. What a great question.
Excuse me. What is salt, Sam? Thank you. That's the proper one that you want to use. So cut out that shit that Pat said before and just use mine.
Could you clearly define it?
Could you not listen to Pat and only listen to me? Actually,
salt is when your 2 co-hosts won't let you talk. No, salt is frustrations in the game. It's when there's a power imbalance at the table, social dynamics, maybe something weird going on in your play group. Maybe somebody's in a bad mood and they're just coming to the table salty before you even start. And then they start sprinkling that salt around, and soon everybody's in a bad mood. Salt kind of ranges from these really small, trivial things like getting a little frustrated when a card of yours gets removed, all the way to like flipping the table, throwing a Blightsteel Colossus at people, crazy shit like that. Salt is also when M. Night Shyamalan can't fucking pronounce Sokka and Aang correctly.
When he's given gold and somehow completely trashes it. He just uses the title like that. That is all that translates from the series to the movie. The title.
It's insane.
Guys, have you seen the movie where the beach turns you old? We're hating on M Night a lot here, but he's made some good ones.
Hey man, Science was pretty good, Sixth Sense was pretty good. But I think these other ones are really bad. Anywho.
Hopefully not as bad as our stories from Reddit.
Thank you, Pat. What a transition. Tony, you can really step it up,
Sam, why don't you go fuck yourself?
What the fuck?
And then Pat can too. Fuck this shit. Making me look bad.
I'm just getting started, baby.
So this first one comes to us from Patreon. And this one is from user MTG Mind Goblin. Mind Goblin.
My goblin these nuts.
And the post is titled "A Growing Salty Stalagmite, an Origin Story."
Ooh,
oh my.
I like that post title.
And the story goes, Dear Sam, Mike, and Tony.
Hey, what about me?
Sorry, Pat.
That's right, bitch.
Please address your emails to me as well from now on.
Yeah, I'll email them back. Have them resend this.
No, please don't do that.
Firstly, I would like to say I'm a huge fan of the show. So much so that I've decided to become a patron. Keep up the good work, guys. Thanks, dude. So our story begins with describing our LGS play environment. For years now, our group has been getting together on a night we call Bad Magic Thursdays. Everyone brings their jankiest and saltiest decks. It's been known that everything goes. High power, casual decks with MLD, infect, stacks, and just general bad salty magic. However, for newer players, we refrain from this. As the player in question plays and understanding of the game progressed, so did his salt. In the beginning, we would let him tutor for lands instead of drawing because he would get so salty for missing land drops.
Oh, been there.
He would constantly try to fight other players for their actions against him in the game, which would then cause people to target him more frequently because they didn't want to deal with him screaming and acting like he was going to punch somebody. Even the employees at the shop had to fight with him to keep him behaving. Oh, God. The moment in which it was decided he needed to be permanently banned is what I would like to talk about.
Permanently?
Holy shit.
They sent this guy to the oblivion.
Yeah.
When frustration from the game became real-life hatred towards other players.
Oh, no.
Lord. During a normal casual game, player A started to get ahead on board with a large amount of werewolves on the battlefield, enough to take a player out in one swing. Players B, C, and D are aware of the threat, and player B, our salty player, decides he's going to take out player A. He threatens to use Tree of Perdition to lower his life to 13 and says, I'm going to only target you for the rest of the game. Player A says, okay, if you do it, I'll swing at you and take you out of the game next turn. Butthurt player B did not care and wasn't persuaded to back down from his statement. Player A proceeds to top deck Relentless Assault and has an enchantment to grant double strike in hand. Naturally, he plays both and kills the salty player B. Player B immediately scoops before damage is dealt and proceeds to point at his Tree of Perdition and says something horribly fucking racist. Jesus Christ.
Oh, no.
Oh, dear.
Jesus. And player A is a
gosh.
person of color. So they start screaming at each other until player B is asked to leave the store. He tries to come back in a few minutes later to apologize, only to be asked to leave again. He stumbled back in a few months later, only to be told that he has been permanently banned from entering the store. Being salty is fine, but don't let the anger of the game turn into hate against another person. We're all just trying to have fun playing the game we love. Thanks for sharing the story, and hopefully we can eliminate hate from our game stores. These places need to be safe spaces for all races, genders, and all people in general. Fuck yeah, Mind Goblin.
Oh, my.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Dude.
That is like, I feel like that is something that, thankfully, I mean, I haven't really seen something to that degree, like, ever in real life.
No,
and like
thankfully.
hear about it in passing. And like, that's so horrible. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think we can pretty confidently say that this person's a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. You know, if anyone is in your play group or your store who's like racist or saying racist, transphobic, or hateful things or anything like that, any bigoted shit, like, fuck that person, man. Like, if your friend gets angry or salty and that shit slips out, like, reconsider who you keep as company, you know?
yeah.
I find that like those really high intensity moments when that shit comes out, it's like showing that person's true colors. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't just get mad and say something horribly racist.
No.
You were probably racist and now you're a mad racist.
Yeah. Jesus.
I want to give props to the LGS because it sounds like
That's
they
literally
punished
what I
this
was gonna
guy
say.
and they were like also willing to like stand up and be like, no, this guy has to leave now. Because like magic is often a hobby that attracts like pretty like nice and like sometimes like meeker people, like people who
Yeah.
aren't as like open to confrontation. So it's really good that everyone in the environment was able to just like band with you and not let you like experience that on your own. So good on your LGS for kicking this guy out, and hopefully he
Yeah.
stays kicked out.
Yeah,
and like
100%.
sticking to the guns too, right? Like not only in the moment, but like when they tried to come back the first time and then again, like later on down the line.
For sure.
I bet player B is angry about the new Aragorn design.
Too bad. He misses the best fucking Magic set in like ever.
Fucking
because
loser.
He's a moron.
Loser behavior.
His
Absolute
room
loser
temperature
behavior.
IQ is keeping him from enjoying cool things.
Damn.
Oh my god, dude.
That is like, it's unacceptable salt, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
This is like a whole nother level. Like I wouldn't even say this is a salty situation. This is like, unfortunately, something that people have to deal with. You know,
Right.
just as a part of their daily lives. And depending on where you live, like you may encounter people who are saying this kind of shit to you on a regular basis. So, like you guys said, it's huge props to the LGS for kicking this person out, and for all the people in the LGS for banding together with that, because there's no place for that in Magic. And it's so unfortunate, you know? I mean, I think it's kind of interesting that like lately I've been looking at like the Magic community as a whole, and I see it getting more and more diverse. And it's really cool, man, you know, because so often like nerdy things are just dominated by like white dudes. And it's really cool to see like, you know, people of color, trans people, women coming in and like playing in the space. Like it's just awesome, you know?
Yeah. I have had some of the best games of EDH ever with like people who years ago maybe would have never been able to get into the hobby because it was populated by like people who look just like me. So yeah, it's definitely great that more and more people are coming in and enjoying the hobby because it's good. And I hope people like Player B continue to leave over stupid stuff like getting killed by a werewolf deck and not being able to do jack shit about it, you weak ass EDH player.
Baby behavior, man.
Yeah.
Maybe should have held up a counter spell.
Yeah, whiny baby behavior.
Yeah, holy shit.
The shittiness of this awful salty player aside, I do want to point out how awesome it is that MTG Mind Goblin has something called Bad Magic Thursdays, where everybody just comes and brings their fucking saltiest deck. Like the horribleness of this post was so blinding that I almost forgot about this. But like people are bringing casual decks with MLD and Infect and Stacks and just being salty on purpose. I think that's kind of awesome.
This is an ideal play group. When you have fun nicknames,
yeah,
you that perfect play group.
We talked about doing something similar to this at one point of like each just having a deck that is like super salt inducing so that like we can kind of do some of these things. Like Mike was hard up on building a fucking land destruction deck for a while.
Yeah.
It was like, I want to build this, but you're all going to hate me. So we kind of toyed around with like everybody having a deck that fit those sort of parameters of, it's all untouchable. You can do like whatever you want and no one's allowed to be salty. But then I feel like for us, at least, having such an insulated meta maybe hurt more in that scenario because we're just gonna be fucking mad.
Well,
we're gonna build shit to like just counter what other people are trying to do, and like that was more of the issue we were having. But maybe we should try and think about trying to bring it back up again so that Mike can build his fucking land destruction deck. I can't believe those words are even coming out of my mouth. But like,
well, it was a funny situation because Mike had this deck, and you and I were hesitant, Tony, because it was like, I only have so much time to play Magic anyways. I only have so much money to invest in decks anyways. Why am I going to build a deck that is like really shitty to play against? And maybe I never get to play it again because no one wants to face it. And then there's also this element of it becoming like a my dad is going to beat up your dad argument. Where it was like, well, I'm going to bring an MLD deck. And it was like, well, I'm just going to bring a fucking counterspell deck then. How about that? And it was like, well, I'm going to bring Stacks and Rule of Law. Have fun only countering one thing per turn, jerk. And it was like, well, then I'm just going to do aggro and fuck you. And it was just like we were already playing the games out and just in chat, just being like, well, I'll do this and then I'll do this. And it just kind of petered out, which is funny because Nick just ended up building his deck anyways. He was going to do Tiny Bones discard, and he built it.
Yeah, I played against that.
Which is funny because that deck really sucked ass. He played it like 4 times and was like, this isn't fun to play. And I also built my super salty deck with my Anawan deck that I built recently, which in practice isn't as salty as I thought it would be or wanted it to be. And it's just like an interesting turn creature sideways kind of deck.
Yeah, you were just feeling salt when you played it because I was playing Rafine.
Fucking Archfiend of Ifnir is trash.
I'm trying to make a salty phage deck. Shout out to Ghost Productions for getting me the secret lair from Minneapolis. That's going to be a fun one. But Real quick, it's funny you guys bring this up because I promised myself I wasn't going to talk about this on the episode, but all this talk about building specifically salty decks, me, Mike, and a few friends recently started our own little league where we created a budget of $70, created a pool of commanders to draw from, and have built budget decks with customized boons and restrictions. And we're going to play them and upgrade them on a schedule. I don't want to say too much more. I'll let Mike talk about it at some point, but it is some of the most fun I have had brewing decks in Magic in a long time. Budget and additional like self-imposed restraints are a really cool idea. For context, my deck for the league is a Scorpion God deck where my boon is anytime someone attacks me, their creature is immediately goaded and next turn it'll have to attack someone else. My restriction is I cannot use any non-creature spells less than 2 mana.
Oh man.
It's a brutal restriction, but I'm loving brewing it because I'm using all these weird cards I've never even thought of using.
That is wicked interesting. Yeah, we should do an episode on that because Mike's been telling us about that, and it just sounds like a fascinating design space.
Super fun.
And Mike's not here, so I have to say it. But using Moxfield and OBS and stuff like that does kind of take away one of the things that was limiting us earlier with our salty decks was that we didn't want to spend the money on the paper and play 2 games with a deck and be like, wow, this fucking sucks. I spent all this money on this thing. Yeah. So, that does kind of cut it out.
Shout out Moxfield. You're an amazing website and I love you.
Yep. Moxfield's great. Hit us up with a sponsor or Architect. I'll shill for whoever.
I'll shill for whoever.
Love that. I don't know is there even a salt rating on this? This is like
it's like glass in a sandwich.
Yeah. That's well said. Yeah. I don't even know if there's an appropriate salt rating for this other than say that, that person can get fucked. And it sounds like they did.
Yeah.
Get fucked.
Literally. Oh my God.
Well, shall we move on, guys?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I need a
new one after that.
A palate
cleanser. Literally.
So this next one comes to us from Gmail. And it comes to us from Jimmy Rustler.
I love the name.
Yeah, the name is
Jimmy
really
Rustler or Jimmy Wrestler?
Jimmy Rustler, like someone who rustles jimmies.
Yeah,
Tony, you've never had your jimmies rustled?
Come on, Tony.
Well, he said Jimmy, and the first thing in my mind, inner fat kid, is sprinkles. But like,
I think that's what it means.
Is that the reference to that? Rustling your jimmies? Yeah. Is it because it makes like the sound?
I think that it basically just means like making someone upset. It's
that I know, but I mean, like, how does that tie back to sprinkles?
Because jimmies is a regional term for sprinkles.
But like, if somebody rustles my sprinkles, am I upset?
Yes.
They obviously have their whole hand in game. I'd hope you'd be upset.
Fair. Now we got there. Now I understand.
So the post title is When Vandal Blast is Armageddon.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Yeah, I think I can too. And the post goes, so I'm writing this to clear my conscience and attempt to absolve me of my EDH sins. Well, you've come to the right people. I have a group of friends that I play with weekly, usually the same 4 to 5 people. During the game in question, I was playing Niv Mizzet Perun with no Curiosity, Tandem Lookout, or Ophidian Eye because my friends hate infinite combos. The game was going mostly smooth, except every time I was able to get Niv Mizzet out, he was immediately shot down, probably rightfully so. I understand that in the past this deck has overperformed, but that was before I took out all the infinite combos. I was behind after Niv being removed twice and knew that he had no chance of sticking around. Then I drew a tutor and grabbed a secret weapon. Thanks to a Mycosynth Lattice my friend had on board, I cast Vandal Blast as a basically one-sided Armageddon. This won me the game within 2 turns because I was able to get Niv back out and wheel into a few more draw spells. Am I an asshole? Nobody seemed to actually be mad, and we all laughed it off, but I wonder if I took it too far to win. Thanks, guys. Big fan of your podcast.
No, you didn't take it too far to win. The Mycosynth Lattice wasn't even yours. You looked at the battlefield, saw something you could take advantage of, and thought creatively. That's like exactly what I want out of an EDH game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think this is just capitalizing on like the board state, on a situation, Things like Mycosynth can lead to these super landslide plays, but it's also risky. Like when you make everything an artifact, now my Abrade is going to kill your planeswalker. You know what I mean?
Sure.
One of the things that Wizards of the Coast does sometimes with cards is if cards have like multiple types, like artifact creature or enchantment creatures and things like that, in the design elements, they actually see it as like a detriment often. You'll see things with like lower costs because they have that, because now they get hit by more removal. So when you add a permanent type to everything, it can be a pretty big weakness.
I was just like, I don't know why, but when you said that, it really made me think of like, I wonder how much goes into like identifying that this artifact creature. Is it going to be an artifact? Is it going to be a creature? Like how many people are sitting in a room like debating back and forth like whether it should be like an artifact creature or just a creature or like something else, you know, like just like a bunch of nerds fucking sitting there in like development being like, no, it should be an artifact creature because XYZ, and like there's just so much to the game. Like, or are those just like simple decisions? Is like every decision now, because there's so much that can go wrong and awry that like you have to like think about every little thing. It's like interesting.
Well, a lot of people were mad that like Esper Sentinel wasn't an artificer, because up until then, I think all of, or very many of the beings from the Esper Wedge or whatever the fuck it is were artificers just by type, because they're, you know, messing around with that cool metal. Yeah. I don't know much about lore.
And that's a whole other angle, right? Because that's like lore side. I don't even give a fuck about the lore side. I'm just like, like just mechanically speaking, like, is it like there's so much to take into account when you're making cards, and like these little interactions that can happen that then all of a sudden, boom, fucking blow up everybody's lands.
Yeah.
Like,
get hit with a Vandal Blast, man.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this, Tony? You're usually pretty anti, you know, MLD, pretty hardcore.
But this is like different because like they win the game in that moment, right? Like it's like they've just destroyed everything else. If they're not in a winning position from there, like
yeah,
then I mean I do hate them if like they just cast this and like had nothing on the board. If they had 5 mana and cast this with nothing else, then I would be mad, because I'd be like, come on, now we're just gonna like wait around. You don't even have enough mana to kill us on the next turn. Like fucking do something. And you're playing blue, so fuck you. But like
there it is.
Okay. That point aside, this does open up a question I want to ask. So oftentimes in casual, if you want to play aggro, one of the best ways to play is to establish a board state. And then once people sort of stacks you out or establish their own value engines, you board wipe and then reestablish your stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that just not a play style that is like fun or okay sometimes? Because like if someone else plays a Mycosynth Lattice and I can just stabilize by wiping out the lands, I kind of view that as just an okay play if I'm like playing a random aggro deck in casual. I wouldn't be salty about that. If someone destroys all my lands and that's like the theme of their deck and they do it every time, I can understand being upset about MLD. But if someone just finds a cool way to slow down the game through that, I feel like that's way more okay.
I don't want the game slowed. I want the game ended. Like if you're gonna like wipe my shit like that, I want it over. I just do not like this slow. Now I gotta fucking build everything back up. I'm like, fucking just end it. Somebody end it. End me. I don't even care.
End me.
I will say, I noticed you guys don't concede a lot in your play group. I think concession is totally fine.
Well, Nick does.
Get wrecked.
Oh man. I mean, we do sometimes like the writing is on the wall and we're like, okay, like let's not play it out. But
it is pretty rare. We could probably count it almost on like 2 hands, like how many times we concede in our pot as a whole.
I think specifically like me and Mike tend to be the masochists that want to play it out.
Yeah.
I'm that way in CDH, but in casual, I'm as long as I'm not scooping mid combat or doing something that like totally warps the game, I'm totally fine to be like, hey, are you guys cool if I concede? Like I got nothing. Like I'm always totally fine to do that and just wait until the next game. So maybe that's why I'm more okay with MLD and like stuff that like totally locks me out.
Yeah, no,
I'll be like, shake my hand. Nice. Good job. You stopped me.
Pat, you mentioned something earlier that I kind of want to circle back to, and it is intentional deck building versus things just happening during the course of the game. And I think that this is like a really different situation because of that. If this person had intentionally built into their deck a Mycosynth Vandal Blast combo, you know, that is kind of like, okay, that's shitty. Like you're purposefully trying to do some MLD stuff, or I guess that could be viewed as shitty depending on who you are and how you feel about that kind of stuff. But when those situations just arise in the course of a game because of multiple players' pieces interacting, I do think that the salt is much lower because it's circumstantial. It's like, oh, this wasn't planned. This wasn't premeditated. You didn't pack your deck full of MLD. This just sort of presented itself and led to what sounds like a pretty quick win just a couple turns later, you know?
For sure. It's like it's spicy at that point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
cool.
Exactly.
When it happens to me, then I'm like, fuck me, because I probably played the Mycosynth Lattice, and then I'm like, God damn it.
Oh, yeah. You're sad if you're that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like what can happen where, you know, if someone does a big board wipe and you make your permanents indestructible or something like that. You know, that's something that tends to happen in our play group every once in a while, where it's like, I'm just capitalizing on the situation and weathering the storm and coming out the other side with a better board state because of it.
For the record, that never happens to me. My shit just gets wiped, and then I'm sad.
but it happens to be a lot.
It really does. Well, what do we think about the salt rating here on this one?
I think it's low. I think this is spicy, if anything. This is something I'd be happy to see in my game, especially if it's, like we said, an out of nowhere MLD and not something you've built your deck around.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't think this is super high salt. Frankly, it sounds like your play group just rolled with it and had like a really good time and thought it was a spicy play. You know, sometimes if you had like a Vandal Blast Mycosynth in your deck, like we were talking about, that starts to be a little sketchy on like you're purposefully bringing that to the table. But hey, board states happen. Interesting things will happen. That's why we play the game, is that you have these 4 different decks coming together and the pieces clash and interact in weird ways and new cool things happen. I don't think you ever thought that you would MLD with your Niv Mizzet deck, but you got to do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like the lesson Tony learned today is that circumstantial salt tastes better than purposeful salt.
Oh, yeah. 100%. 100%.
Put that on a shirt.
Hell yeah, baby.
Alrighty, guys. Well, let's move on to another one here.
Hell yeah.
We got another one from Patreon here. This one comes to us from our patron Rothbox.
Hi, Rothbox.
What's up, Rothbox? What's up, dude? And the post title is Getting Others to Do Your Dirty Work.
Oh, I like it already.
And the story goes, I was playing in a moderate powered game, playing Rona, Disciple of Gix. I had out 10 Thopters and 1 enchanted with mechanized production. I passed my turn and said, this wins on my next upkeep. I won't stop anyone from trying to blow it up. The game was early enough. I didn't particularly want it to end, but wasn't going to not play it if I already had 10 Thopters on board. Turns keep passing with no answers until the player before me. He draws Druid of Purification. Okay, yep, that'll do it. You can blow up mechanized production or the Thopter. He points at a different random artifact I have on board. Confused, I say, okay, I'm not going to pick anything. The rest of you can vote for my win on, and it's destroyed. They proceed to vote for different artifact I own, and then the win con. So all 3 are destroyed, and I'm now basically useless. I asked him why he didn't target the win con, and he said, seems like it got destroyed for me. That's some Weevil Underwood level bullshit. Oh. I did not win that game, but neither did he. So there is some justice, I suppose. Okay, I have to read this Druid of Purification. I'm like,
it's a good card. It was featured on a lot of EDH gameplay channels when it first came out, and I think it's sort of faded into the background. But this is still a good card.
Yeah, Druid of Purification. It is a 4 mana cost, 3 and a green, and it says when Druid of Purification enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control, destroy each permanent chosen this way. And that's really interesting. So they basically played this and kind of forced somebody else to target the mechanized production.
Right. You're saying somebody else here doesn't get a choice. I get a choice because I'm the one casting the card, but somebody here has to deal with the win con.
That is super, super interesting. I guess we should probably read mechanized production as well, just for folks who don't know it. Mechanized production, it is a blue enchantment aura. It costs 2 and 2 blue, and it says enchant artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. Yeah, so he was going into that upkeep with the mechanized production, was going to win with the 10 Thopters, and then it comes down and you just force other people to do your shit. I think that's just good politics, you know?
Yeah, I agree. What a cool card Druid of Purification is.
It's an interesting one. 4 mana for me.
Oh, it's no CDH card. It's for sure a casual card. But what casual deck that's like, we're not trying to win by turn 8 or 9. Like, this is a good old fashioned battle cruiser Magic. What deck do you not slot this in over Reclamation Sage?
Yeah, that is a really good point. I mean, just 1 mana more and a Rec Sage that hits. I mean, everybody
target
gets something to hit.
Yeah, this is potentially 4 targets.
Yeah, up to 4 targets. Dead. That's pretty sick. That's an interesting one.
I think this card is a bit pricey though. It's what, like
it is.
$5?
It's like $9.
$9? Yeah,
$8.42, but
I'll take the 25-cent Reclamation Sage, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting on a couple of these. What set was
Are
this,
you?
Tony?
Adventures in the Forgotten Realms.
Really? Maybe I'm lying. Maybe I don't.
And maybe it's a little bit lower. I feel like this near mint from direct TCG player is like $9, but the other ones seem like they're more around like $6.50.
Okay, that's still pretty high. I thought AFR was generally like a pretty low cost set overall.
It's doing better. There's a couple standouts.
I do really respect the move of, like, I think this is actually something that you do a lot, Pat, which is like playing the win con even when it comes up maybe a little bit too fast in a casual game, but also like kind of throwing out some caveats there and being really open about it. Like, I know that you've done this with your Titania deck, and I think we've talked about that before, where you're like, hey, I can pop off right now. I'm going to make 3 elementals and pass the turn. And if you guys can't kill me on my turn, I'm just going to win. And like kind of doing that and like floating out a little bit. I don't think it really falls into like a playing with your food category, which sometimes we caution people against. Like, I think there's a difference between giving your opponents a fair shot against a win con that maybe came a little too early versus like stretching it out and kind of watching people squirm and then trying to win, you know?
So as the prolific blue player I am, something I tend to do is monologue. And in casual games, that happens a lot. And like you said, you don't want to be playing with your food, but it can be really fun sometimes to have like a Seto Kaiba moment, to go back to a Yu-Gi-Oh reference like this guy did. A Seto Kaiba moment where you can say, I get to play this really powerful card, and let's see if you guys can do anything to stop me. When in reality, I'm shields down, sitting on a 1/1 Thopter that if anybody can kill, you probably disrupt my game plan for the rest of the game. So while I think it's an important distinction to make, that like probably not an optimal play, and something I also noticed him say was, I didn't want the game to end. An asterisk I should want to put on this story is, you shouldn't cast your win the game card if you don't want the game to end.
Well, true life.
But no, I think giving other players a villain to beat is something really fun, and almost just as fun as winning sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that it is fun to like embrace the arch enemy every once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, Tony, you do that every game, so you must love it.
I do tend to play that role in our pod. The funny thing
for better
is,
or worse,
it used to be Nick. Like,
yeah, it used to be always be Nick.
It really was like always Nick, and he was always building these decks that just like were popping off. He wasn't winning, he was just like popping off hard, fast, and like now it's me.
I think for a while it was me as well when I was playing Marisi.
I don't remember
because
that really.
Marisi,
I don't think Sam has ever really been, you know. His decks suck.
It's because I'm a fair player and people like me. But something that you said, Pat, that I think is interesting is, do you not cast the mechanized production? Because Rothbox's justification here is like, hey, I have it in hand. I have the 10 tokens out. I just have to cast this. When you don't cast it, are you now falling into that territory of like playing with your food, where you have the win con and you're
That's
like,
a good point.
I'll give it a couple more turns. I'll like kind of tease it out. You know, I think it's almost better to be like really upfront and be like, hey, I'm going to drop this down because the time is ripe. This is a weird card that wins in a very specific way, and my board state hits that right now. But there's a full turn rotation before the win comes. It feels pretty fair to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of harped on that. I didn't want the game to end line because I don't like it sometimes when people go for a game-winning move and then win the game and we're like, oh, I thought you guys were going to stop me. It's just like, it's such like I didn't know I was going to be able to flex that much. I don't like that. That's like not a tone I like to establish.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like with these kind of things, it does kind of come down to like tone and intent with,
intent is important to express. That's why when you said earlier, like I try to be very open, like, hey, I'm playing this card. I'm not going to win immediately with it right now, but if you don't stop me, I'm going to be able to. So I try to explain how my deck works a little bit, especially when you're playing casual, which may include people who haven't seen your deck before.
Yeah, especially like mechanized production. It's kind of a weird card.
Definitely a weirder card.
I feel like of the alternate Wincons, it's one of the least exciting and yet also at the same time like most plausible. I feel like it's always like easy to have 8 tokens of something or 8 copies of something. Like, and Nick has won with this before, I think, in the Bruvac deck maybe. And he can at me if I'm totally wrong here, but I think when he did win, he was kind of like, that was kind of cool but sad at the same time. Like, we were having like an interesting good game, and then he just like got an 8th land. I think he had like an 8th snow land or some shit. Like, there was some like weird something. Maybe it's not lands. I don't remember how it works, but like,
I forget what it was. I think it was
he had 8 as something that I thought was producing mana, but I don't remember.
I forget the deck, but I do remember that moment where he won with that a couple times and kind of snuck it in. And it is sort of that type of win con where it's like, well,
it's over.
Yeah, the game's over.
Yeah, it just felt kind of like lame.
Yeah, I think, man, there's a lot of win cons that suffer from that. Things that say I win the game tend to be a little bit more boring than just straight up attacking people and bring their life totals down, which is really weird to me because, like, I feel like Craterhoof gets some hate because it's because it's like, it's very generic and used a lot. But at the same time, I feel like people would rather lose to Craterhoof than to Thassa's Oracle, for example. Even though the same thing might be like a single spell is being cast and you are losing the game because of it. But there just is a little bit of combat with the Craterhoof. Granted, huge mana cost differences, maybe not the best comparison. But you know what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think about the salt rating here?
Feels low to me. This feels just like just kind of like a interesting story, interesting interaction, and an opponent making a savvy play.
Yeah, I like the analogy of getting people to do your work for you. I think this is not an example of like priority bullying or anything that we talked about on the show recently. This is just using a card correctly.
I was thinking about priority bullying, though. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Right. There are like very like tenuous lines to that story, but I think this is a completely different situation.
Yeah.
There's at no point where someone is like, no, this is not the same.
It also makes me think of like Chain of Vapor bullying. Which, if people don't know what Chain of Vapor is, it's 1 blue for an instant. You return target permanent to its owner's hand. I think maybe it's non-land. And then that player can sacrifice a land to copy Chain of Vapor. So sometimes, if there's like a win con or a winning piece or something on the board that needs to be bounced, if I have the Chain of Vapor, maybe I'll bounce something critical on Tony's board that was fucking me up. And now it's on Tony to copy the Chain of Vapor and bounce the thing that's winning.
Right.
And you can like kind of like force people to do that, but
it gets dangerous though, because if you do that, they can just target you again.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And force you to do it.
I think that has happened before in our siege, but where somebody like I think you or somebody tried to do that, and I think I may have even bounced on occasion when that's happened. I've even used it to my advantage to like bounce one of my own pieces and then like bounce the thing that's a problem. But what I'm still thinking about is Druid of Purification and whether I should be running it in more decks or not.
It's good.
And I'm reading it again now, and I'm like, the thing I don't like is that it's the May. So everybody else may choose a thing, so you can drop it down and everybody could just be like, if we just don't do it. Like,
now, in what world do people not vote for that though? Because
they don't want more of their stuff being blown up. So like I'm gonna hit like something on Sam's board, right? And he's gonna be like, I'm fucking mad. So I could
like,
choose
"Fuck
to
you."
not hit other people's stuff if y'all don't hit mine. But if you're gonna hit mine, then I'm gonna hit one of yours. So I think it would just quickly turn into like, okay, none of us are gonna do anything because we don't want to. And
Maybe.
like you get rid of the one thing, but
Yeah, I could see that. I could see
I
that
wish I'd
happening.
force them to do it.
Still high on this card.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a sick card. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I feel like we tend to play for ourselves and not for the betterment of the game when these types of effects come down in like our pod, because we always are like, I don't want to lose any of my own shit, even though I know stuff that like Mike or Nick has is a problem. I would rather just like preserve my own things, and I will do whatever it takes to preserve myself. It's definitely how we play.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's correct, but
You said earlier you view yourself as the arch enemy in the pod a lot. I often view myself as like the janitor or the custodian, because on mono blue, if someone's like casted an Adnaz, I have to be like, now did you leave open mana to counter stuff? Because I'm going to be countering. Okay, now I'll just clean that up for you. No, you don't need that Adnaz. Like I often feel like I am the one who's cleaning up messes that have been left around.
yeah, we tend to go more for the Wild West, and whoever wins first cleans up.
Yeah, for better or worse, a lot of us are on that player removal jam where we're like,
Yeah.
I can't remove this thing, but I could just knock that person out.
Yeah, I could just kill you. So like maybe that's and then we don't do it. Or that's my biggest flaw when I play. I should just kill people more frequently, and I don't, and it always comes back and bites me in the ass.
Oh man, gotta play those Voltron decks, dude. That's when you just knock someone right out.
Hell yeah.
Well, guys, I think it might be that time of the week.
It is, baby.
That time.
Yeah, it comes every week.
You fucking know it.
It's the time of the week where we say,
Hell yeah.
Tony, what's the salty card of the week?
What up, bitches?
Doesn't miss a beat.
Mike's not here, so fuck him. The salty card of the week this week is
Tony has the salty card this week.
Salty, salty, salty.
For a second I thought you weren't gonna do it, and it was kind of throwing me off. And then you did, and so it was fine.
I just always forget that it's coming. And like some weeks I'm so prepared that I write an entire song for it. And some weeks it hits and I'm like, what is going to come out of my mouth right now?
Lol. Well, this one comes to us yet again from the wonderful Google random number generator. I will say though that this time I hit it once and it came to a number that we've already done. So
Oh wow.
Ooh, we're getting up there in episodes.
Interesting. Yeah, for real. And I actually was thinking about that because then I was like, well, we have done like 50 of them, so it's like it's not that much of a chance that you're not going to hit something. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean at this point we need EDH Rec to update it. Like there's going to be a point.
well, they did update it, right? So it's like some of them are different from like when we initially started. But
There is going to
anyway.
be a point where we need to go off of the list because we've like used everything.
Anyway, let's get into this card. I'm very interested in if either of you have heard of this card, because I had not. So this card is Divine Intervention. 6 white for an enchantment. Put 2 counters on this card. Remove a counter during your upkeep. When you remove the last counter from Divine Intervention, the game is over and considered a draw.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk about this. This is like the ultimate alternate win condition.
Well, Pat, since you got the most excitement, you get to go first. Does this card make you salty?
No, never. How often would you be able to see this card? I'm opening TCG Player after this episode ends, and I want to see how much it is because
It's expensive. It's like $130
for sure. Yeah, it's not cheap, but like the smile I want to see on people in my LGS's face when I throw this on the table. Oh, I can't even. This is so unique, so weird. Like you have to build a deck completely around tying the game. I feel like if you're going to build this deck, and that is like a really unique thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It screams different, and that is something I like. I could understand it being salty because you are literally playing a different game once you discard it. So,
that is true.
I understand it, but no, this card is cool. And you can come at me for that take.
Sam, how about you? Does this card make you salty?
No, I mean I'm in the same boat as Pat. It's really cool. Like, and honestly, like 8 mana, right? Like it costs 8. 8 mana spells should be doing big, ridiculous things. It has a bit of setup. Comes in with those 2 counters on it. You remove them on upkeep, so it's kind of the slow roll to get to that draw. I do see where the salt comes from because, we were kind of talking about it earlier. Those anticlimactic wins. This is like
Not
the
a
most
win.
anticlimactic end to a game. It's just like, all right, and now the game is over, and we will start a new one. Like,
Oh, but you win if you play this card. You win.
yeah, you're playing a mini game. You're winning. You're getting the achievement, but you're not winning the game.
Right.
It does seem like there's some combos with it.
What?
You think of like Vampire Hexmage, for example, 2 black, 2/1 Vampire Shaman. You can sack it to remove all counters from target permanent. So you could have that like out ready to go and maybe use something like Gen, Ghen, which is the Mardu Enchantress commander. I'm pretty sure what Gen says is you sacrifice an enchantment and you put an enchantment from your graveyard back into play. So you could like have pitch this into your yard and then play Vampire Hexmage and then bring it back out, kind of like reanimate this enchantment and pop it off and probably get it way before you have 8 mana.
It's a good point.
There are different like things to do there to like fuck around with it, but it just seems cool, man. It's definitely a specific type of deck though. You got to sit down and be like, hey, this is my divine intervention deck. I'm going to be doing some weird shit. Tony, how do you feel about this?
I definitely agree with what you guys are saying. I think it's really weird. And I had a very similar vibe of what you guys have. It's like, I kind of want to build it. But
like, how do I break it?
I don't know if I want to break it.
If you look at our stats that we talk about a bunch, we do have like 1 or 2 draws that have happened. But they were like very unique scenarios. I think that how this definitely would make it salty is because people would just be like, what the fuck? Like, that's it. Like, it's just a draw. And I think we talked about how people tend to have that kind of feeling about even alternate win cons, where if there aren't enough hoops that you have to jump through, it doesn't like feel cool, if you didn't like have to do a bunch of stuff, because that's like what it is, right? People want like a bunch of cool, quote, cool things to happen, and then they're like satisfied with the ending to the game. Like, I can see how this would be an unsatisfying end to the game because of exactly what you're saying, Sam. Like, it's not that hard to pop this out and like just make this happen, right? You could do that with like 6 cards, like 2 of them being tutors, 3 of them being tutors, get all the pieces in your hand, pop it out, done. Like, it's kind of quick, but it is also fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing with a lot of those win cons. Like, players want win cons to be earned, whether it's through combat damage and like that type of grind, or it's CDH. And even in CDH, a Thassa's Oracle win can feel very earned through a counterspell war, appropriate timing, things like that. It's when you're playing those types of really powerful kind of instant win cons, alternate win cons, and dropping them in a pod that's unsuspecting or a pod that like can't stop it, where it just hits and it happens and everyone's like, all right, well, I guess the game's over. I think that is anticlimactic and leaves people feeling salty. With this one, it's kind of like you said, Pat, it kind of is a win. Like, even though the game is a draw, I almost feel like it is a alternate win con for the divine intervention player. It doesn't say you win the game, but you still cause the game to end, which to me feels very, very similar.
Yeah, you said something that I want to harp on. You said I want to break this card earlier. I think that is where this is something that could be a little annoying. Is if someone in your play group builds the perfect deck around this card to get it out as fast as possible, doesn't really worry about the counters, they have a way around that, and they just tie the game every game, and this is no longer unique. I could see that being salty and that being no fun. But if somebody rolls up into your LGS, some mysterious hermit sage, and they pull out their divine intervention deck and you have no idea what you just sat through. I mean, how could you not love that? That's like what the format is for.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points to that are interesting. And the first is that, like, I feel like you play this once with a group. Like, you can't play it multiple times. And At least for me, I think I would be more annoyed with it the more I saw it. But the first time I saw it, if it was this kind of like weird, janky fucking thing, like it also had a theme of like all old fucking cards or something, because this is an old card.
Yeah.
I would definitely be very into that. But I wouldn't like, once you've done it once, you've done the thing. And I'm kind of like, okay, like it's not that cool anymore. The other thing that's weird is like, I don't want to know that's what you're going to do. And to your point, I do want it to happen later in the game. I want it to happen around when anybody else would be trying to win, like turn 8 and on, and I would be like totally cool.
Right.
Especially if you like do some weird shit to pull it out, some weird funky tutors and stuff. But like that's kind of against part of what we preach and part of what also makes healthy games of like knowing what's going to happen. But I do want it to just be a surprise. Like I want it to just happen. And that's when I would be the most like, oh, this is fucking amazing. Like, that's hilarious. Like you do win because we all tied.
Well, without like really breaking it with like a hex mage or something like that, it does kind of have this like impending doom vibe going on where it's like the counters are slowly coming off. You play it, everybody has 2 rounds to fucking deal with it. It's actually kind of similar to the story that we got from Rothbox, where he's like, hey, my Wincon's on board. How can you stop me? Can you stop me over the next 4 turns, over the next 8 turns, whatever it is? Can you dig for that interaction and stop this piece? And I think there's a lot of wins like that. Approach of the Second Sun is very similar, where you cast it out and it's like, hey, guess where this is going? And guess where it's going to be in 3 turns? Hopefully back in my hand and I'll be casting it again.
Yeah.
You kind of have this interesting vibe where there's a clock on the table and people are trying to unite against like the villain, and the Wincon is there. And I think that can be cool, but the draw thing, I think, is the one thing that kind of sticks for me. That's hard, where it's like not truly a win, but you did end the game. And it's just kind of a strange thing. Like, how do you handle that? And I could see like what you're saying, Tony. I could see it getting old.
Yeah. The first time I would see it come down, if I didn't have the most commanding lead, I would be trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
I would definitely be that player who would be like,
this is cool.
Somebody tries to like play circle with the druid we just talked about.
Yeah, someone does like a druid of purification, and you're
like, I'm not targeting
like,
that.
I refuse to target it.
Yeah,
I will not. And then somebody else targets it, and I'll fucking deflecting swat it. Like,
yeah. If your board state sucks ass, this is a great card to see across the table.
Oh yeah, because it's a draw.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
There's like some people that would just be like, yeah. So it is interesting from that perspective too. But what do you guys think about where this sits on the list?
Oh, that's a good question.
Isn't it though?
It can't be high.
I will go first, Pat, since you are a guest host, and the person who guesses second usually has a slightly better chance here. I'm gonna say 79, Tony.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 62.
Ooh, got a close race.
76.
Nice.
Ooh, dude, I'm on a streak ever since I came back.
I know,
I'm
for
on
real.
a fucking streak.
Bullshit.
I'm like
even
within
70
2 or
is
3.
high. I was kind of like, maybe people are like weirdly salty about this card, but even 70 seems kind of high for an effect like this. An effect that does not lose the game.
Yeah, it's like
that's high.
To me, it's interesting because it's like, who's fucking running into this? Like, are tons of people running into this to the point where they're like, oh, that would make me salty.
That's why I'm like, how the fuck? Like, so how many decks do you think this made it into? That's
sub 300.
Yeah, I would say like, I think in a recent episode, we had that like rounding glitch where it was a 0%. I think it's something like that.
You're correct. It is 0%, but it's in 935 decks, so not even 1,000 decks.
Whoa!
But there's like over 1 million for reference of like what the
the total pool.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, one, such a niche card. 2, expensive. It seems like it was reserved list. Super expensive card from the past. 3, requires a very specific build. And 4, requires a very specific builder to even build the deck,
That's why it's only in 935 decks. Like,
yeah, you have to want that. You have to want that memery that you're bringing.
For sure. Well, that's it for the salty card of the week.
Well, thanks, Tony. That was a great salty card. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into another episode of the Howling Salt Mine podcast. If you want more Howling Salt Mine, check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/howlingsaltmine. We have extra salt episodes once a month. We have our Stray Grains, which are coming out weekly, sometimes twice a week, our little short form series that we do, all the funny tangents that we have from the show that don't make the final cut. We've got merchandise that you can get on our Bonfire store. You can be repping the Howling Salt Mine logo. You can have our blue is a trash color for trash people shirt, rep your own trash identity, or call other people trash, whatever.
Loud and proud.
Yeah.
Loud and proud.
My islands are untapped and I am proud.
I got 2 blew up and I don't care who knows. If you have a salty story that you'd like featured on a future episode, send it to us at thehowlingsaltmine@gmail.com. As always, it's actually kind of a lie because I've forgotten to say this a lot, but we ask that you keep those short, sweet, and do the salt. I don't think I've said that in like 2 months.
It is catchy, though.
Or DM us on, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, Reddit, wherever you want to do it. Lastly, if you haven't given us a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice, that is a great way for other people to find us in that big ol' algorithm. And it really helps out the podcast. And of course, we have to shout out our amazing podcast artist, JD Burnett, for doing our podcast art. It is beautiful. We love it. And we love him. If you're ever in Asheville, North Carolina, hit him up and get a sweet tattoo.
10,000 subscribers are bust.
Yeah. 10,000 subscribers and we're all going to get that tattooed on us by JD. We're flying down there.
He's the only one I would let do it. I literally wouldn't let anybody else do it.
Oh, no way. It has to be him. It has to be him.
I don't think I could let myself do that unless I come on like 20 episodes or something. I'd feel like one of those guys who goes to like an Army Navy store to get discounts at like Christmas time. It's like stolen valor. You guys can keep that tattoo for now.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, Pat. This is awesome having you on, dude.
Well, thanks.
It was okay. Like I've had better episodes, but it's fun.
Yeah, we've definitely had better episodes when it's me, Mike, and Pat. Yeah, that's a good point, Tony.
No, for real. Thank you guys for having me. It's always so much fun.
Yeah, this is a pleasure for sure. I love the perspective you bring. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, I'm gonna end it now.
As always. Stay salty.
Yeah, as always, stay salty, and don't forget to draw an additional card during your draw step. And don't be racist.
It's the Howling Salt Mine. The Howling Salt Mine.
Conscience. Should be conscience. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Shoot us a email at howling. Oh my god, my brain just fucking like
you should do that a little bit again. Hang on.
By blowing up my solemn simulacrum,
I think
give everyone a land.
I think we did this one.
What? You guys didn't mark it, dude?
Yeah. I think this is in the Tony Mike episode.
Did you not mark it?
We might. There's a very real it could have gotten missed on the mark.
Oh my god, you guys fucking suck so bad. It's so bad.
When you said Bow Buoy, I was like, that sounds oddly familiar.
Wow. Pat would never do this.
Literally working QA, by the way. I've never missed a single thing. Ask my boss.
I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm sorry.
You've thrown off all hosts' groove.
Yeah, you thrown off my fucking groove, dude. I also read like almost all of it before you figured it out.